Council meeting in Mount Angel. Join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Say roll call.
Go ahead.
Counselor Eager,
Here.
Counselor Astorga,
He's absent.
Counselor Donahue,
Here.
Counselor Ott,
Absent.
Counselor Hofer,
Here.
Counselor Bullet,
Here.
and Student Counselor Gigon. Here. Mayor Fowl.
Here. All right. We are going to start with a proclamation from Marie Jennings. Would you like to say a little bit before we read your proclamation?
That'd be wonderful, thank you. So my name is Marie Jennings. I am with the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. I'm also representing the group of nonprofits and organizations that have come together across Marion County to get the word out about April being Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. So I just wanted to go ahead and read out the nonprofits and organizations that are part of the great work that's going on across Marion County. Salem Police Department, the Salvation Army Croc Center, Valor Mentoring, Boys and Girls Club of Salem, Marion and Polk counties, CASA of Marion County, Center for Hope and Safety, Family Building Blocks, Family YMCA of Marion and Polk counties, Kaiser Police Department, Liberty House, Marion and Polk County Early Learning Hub, Marion County Health and Human Services, Salem Angels, Salem Kaiser School District, the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, Marion County Sheriff's Office, and the Salem Leadership Foundation. Thank you so much, counselors, and your honor.
Thank you. So with that, in the matter of proclaiming April as Child Abuse Prevention Month, this matter came before Mount Angel City Council on its regularly scheduled meeting on April 6, 2026, to proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas every child deserves to live in a safe, loving, and caring family environment, and whereas in 2024, of all completed CPS assessments in Oregon, over 8,000 were founded for abuse and involved almost 12,000 victims, of which 814 were victims in Marion County. Whereas we stand together as individuals, organizations, and government agencies to commit to preventing child abuse in our county by raising awareness throughout the community and by educating and supporting caregivers. And whereas we assert that strong families and safe, stable, and nurturing environments free from violence, abuse, and neglect are essential for children's optimal growth and success, which ensures a secure future for our communities, where the needs of children are a priority and the needs of family are met. And now, therefore, the Mount Angel City Council asks everyone to commit to protecting our children and does hereby proclaim April 2026 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. All right, thank you.
We'll get a picture.
What that?
Well, we've been doing pictures at all the city councils. Would that be comfortable for you, your honor?
I ain't no judge. Go ahead.
She wants you.
Oh, okay.
I can stand by you if that's wonderful.
All right.
And then maybe just a handshake, is that?
That works.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You messed the whole lighting of her phone up. The whole thing went dimmer when you left.
Stage still pretty bright.
Do we have the appearance of any interested citizens?
Yeah, I did not get any. I don't know if they emailed and said, but I didn't get any.
Is anybody here for general comment to the council? Hearing none, we'll move on. Review of accounts payable. Counselor Bellack. Counselor Donahue.
Nothing.
Counselor Hofer.
Good.
Counselor Eder.
I just have one. We must have bought a new Kubota tractor. And we keep the old one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I think that's all I had.
All right. Let's double check. I had nothing additional. With that, we're moving on to consent agenda. Were there any corrections to the city council meeting minutes of March 2nd, 2026?
No.
All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Approve the consent agenda.
Second. I have a motion from Counselor Hofer and seconded by Counselor Bellack. We have a roll call, please.
Counselor Roulette,
Aye.
Counselor Eder,
Aye.
Counselor Hofer is,
Aye.
Counselor Storba is absent. Counselor Donahue,
Aye.
Counselor Ott is absent, and Mayor Fowl.
Aye. All right, moving on to new business. Our first item. Let's make sure I don't mess this up. For the first item, I will be opening a public hearing in regards to zone file ZC 2026-01. Good evening. My name is Joseph Fowl. I am the chair of the Mount Angel City Council, aka Mayor, and I will be presiding over this public hearing. This is the time and place set forth for the public hearing in the matter of file ZC 2026-01, a zone map change from commercial general to residential commercial involving a 0.40 acre property addressed at 485 North Main Street in Mount Angel. The approval criteria that apply to this action are found in section 3.4 of the Mount Angel Development Code. The hearing is now open. It is 7:07 p.m. This public hearing will proceed first with the staff report. After a summary of the proposed action is presented, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to testify. Any party testifying before the city council must give their name and address for the record. An issue which may be the basis for an appeal to the land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, shall be raised not later than the final public hearing on this case. Such issues shall be raised with the accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford this body and the parties to this hearing an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. At the close of tonight's public hearing, the city council may make a final decision to approve with revisions, continue, deny, or take no action on the land use application. So I need to ask a couple questions for the audience. Are there any objections? Wait, do I need to get your staff report first? Before I
Read that statement first.
got it. Oh, yeah, thanks, Kurt. For the audience, are there any objections to the notice that was published? For the city council, are there any declarations of conflict of interest or bias by any city councilor? For the city council, are there any declarations of ex parte contact or site visits by any city councilor? I think we all drive by it every day, but I don't believe anybody has stopped specific to this, correct? Okay. City Planner Kurt Fisher, please present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. So we've got a pretty simple zone change request involving a single property that's in the commercial general zone, but it's more accurately described as a residential property. It's developed with a single family home. It's part of the strip of lots on this side of Main Street. That's in the commercial general commercial zone, but just for whatever reason, they've never developed with commercial uses, so they remain residential in nature. So they are lawfully non-conforming with the zoning map. and this is one of those properties. My understanding is that the applicant wants to develop the property with some sort of residential use, either adding one or two more units, something like that. And the residential commercial zone allows him to do that, but retain the commercial designation. So we're just changing the zoning map, we're not changing the commercial designation. So it doesn't affect any employment inventories or residential inventories that would, so it's not affecting the availability of employment land, and it's not affecting the residential buildable lands. So pretty straightforward, it's just the residential commercial zone just allows some lower intensity commercial uses and a variety of residential uses. Everything except straight detached single family. But that's the situation that it is now, so it doesn't affect the non-conformity of the lot by moving it to the new zoning district. So pretty straightforward. Recommendation is to approve. The last page of the staff report, there's a suggested motion, which was also repeated on the cover sheet. The request action. So the procedure goes, so it is a legislative action, it's a policy act, and so the planning commission's action on it was to recommend approval to city council. City council is the decision-making body, so it needs to be passed by ordinance, because it is amending the zone. Is a policy decision, so. The hearing ends the land use decision component of the procedure, and then there's an ordinance that's also in the packet, so you can conduct first reading of the ordinance after you close the hearing, make a decision on the request, and then move on to the first reading of it.
Okay, thank you. I will now accept public testimony regarding the land use application. All speakers, please fill out the speaker sign-in sheet, clearly state your name and address for the record. Is anybody interested in making a public testimony? Excellent. Would the city council like staff to address any of the public testimony? There was none. Does any party request to continue this public hearing?
When do we get to ask the question?
I'm almost there,
Okay.
I believe. If there are no further questions for staff, the city council discussion down below. I'm gonna allow the questions since we're still in the hearing. Is that
So
okay, Kurt?
curious, you just, thank you, you described a series of residential homes in that area. This is only for one,
Just the one lot, yeah.
so why would you not look at the other one at the same time? Because they didn't ask for it, or?
They don't own those lots.
Oh, they don't own
Those
those
aren't included in the application, those aren't included in the request. So it's just for the one lot. The only reason that I just wanted to explain the context of the lot and the fact that it's staying consistent with the historic development that's in that area.
Okay,
That's the only reason that I brought it up.
I'm gonna ask you to hold tight for a second. So I'm trying to make sure we do this by the book so you don't have a problem later. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
So is this just to get that back lot separated off? Is that what's happening here? If this goes down and it doesn't pass, then you can't separate that back lot off?
It wouldn't affect any future land division, so there's not a land division included in this application. But there's a variety.
So in a short sentence,
Sentence way that they could partition it.
so in a short answer, what is the reason for this?
My understanding is they want to add another unit or two to that lot. or possibly partition the lot to allow another residential unit or development on that lot. And that's currently not allowed in the current zoning, in the general commercial zone. So they don't allow those types of standalone residential uses in the general commercial zone. The residential commercial zone allows duplexes, triplexes, multifamily, so they can do those residential uses on that lot. But I don't know what the owner specifically has planned, other than just what's in the what they submitted in the application, which sounds like they want to pursue some residential option.
Can I ask why that you just, what's the decision-making process for the city planning commission to say yes versus no? I guess I'm not
Meets
comfortable.
so there are several criteria that are right there in the staff report. They're in section 3.4. There's 4 or 5 of them. There's specific findings that respond to each one in there based on the information that the applicant presented, and there's a staff recommendation that found that all those criteria were met, and they concurred with staff to recommend them. So it's advisory, city council is the final decision maker on this type of application.
And there was a hearing that people in the surrounding areas could have input, and they didn't have anything.
Yep, there's-
No one said anything about it as far as
Yep.
like negative comments.
There's the description of the public notice is in there. It went out to everybody within 250 feet of the property, so they had the opportunity to make written comments if they want, show up for the hearing, offer testimony. Both of these hearings were included in the same notice,
Thank you.
but nobody came, nobody offered any testimony, so.
Any other questions for staff? If there are no further questions for staff, the public testimony is now over. I will close the public hearing at 7:17 PM. I will now entertain discussion on the applications. Any discussion from council? If there's no further city council discussion, staff has included a recommendation, or excuse me, included a recommended motion in the staff report.
I move to approve ZC 2026-01 as presented in the staff report, including the findings of fact and is recommended by the planning commission.
Second.
I have a motion from Counselor Hofer, seconded by Counselor Peter. We have a roll call, please.
Rob? Counselor Black?
Aye.
Counselor Eater?
Aye.
Counselor Hofer?
Aye.
Counselor Astorga is absent. Counselor Donahue?
Aye.
Mayor Pop?
Aye. All right. Before we move on to the next thing, anyone who was just here for that is more than welcome to take off.
You guys read the-
First reading of ordinance, yeah.
Okay. I will conduct the first reading. I didn't realize that was part of that motion. So,
Is it part of that motion or do we need?
It's not part of that motion, that was just to post the hearing and make a decision on the land use portion and then the implementation.
all right, so hold on, Kurt. Because they're all stacked in here as one item. All right, would anybody like to make a motion in regards to ordinance number 786, an ordinance changing the zoning of property located at 485 North Main Street? Since apparently there's two things to do.
I move to conduct the first reading of ordinance 76.
Second.
I have a motion from Counselor Hofer and a second from Counselor Eater to have the first reading of ordinance number 786, an ordinance changing the zoning of property located at 485 North Main Street as described in Reel 4601, page 33 of Marion County Public Records from general commercial to residential commercial.
Council Congo,
Aye.
Dr. Otto absent, Council Webb,
Aye.
Council Eater,
Aye.
Council Holker,
Aye.
Torres absent, Mayor Fowl.
Aye. Okay, now I think we're done with that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, moving on to our next item. 8B, library policy updates.
Your library director.
So I am presenting to here 3 policies that have gone to the Library Advisory Board for approval of revisions. This is on the regular every 5 years policy update and revision schedule that we follow. All these changes were made with their approval, but the process they asked me to follow was I would bring them my suggested changes, and then they would discuss them, give me feedback, etc. But after that process, these were the approved 3. And the changes are all outlined using the track changes function, so you can see things that are struck through, things that are added. And then anything that you see that looks like, here, I'll give you an example. The section on miniature horses had quite a lot of information included on the old policy. I suggested that we refer to ada.gov rather than listing that whole policy in our internal documents. So lots of referring to other policies rather than listing them were the main changes. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about these.
Were these policies reviewed by your legal counsel?
No, not that I know of.
Any other questions?
I didn't see any revisions marked in red.
They have come through in blue, so
I looked and I looked again.
I would only have one question within, this is based on your confidence level in future work, is are we confident in referring to other things, so other regulations, right? We refer to other regulations which may or may not be updated without our, well, obviously without our input or approval, right? So I would just say that for future reviews, we would need to ensure that all referenced guidelines were also referenced again, right?
Yes, and I took that to mind when I was making my suggested changes. So I suggested they visit ada.gov rather than referencing specific policies or guidance. We would have to double check that those websites are still listed under the same web link, but I felt confident enough that ada.gov would probably still be referable in the future. There are websites and phone numbers throughout reference, but I didn't list, or I didn't say, reference ORS XYZ. I mostly did reference these databases that contain the most up-to-date information.
Okay.
And I think probably for this round of them, the most relevant policy is the animals in the library policy. And that's where I was careful to say reference ada.gov. The others, I didn't have as much like federal or state law related to them. So.
With reference to the animals.
Yeah.
Where were we and where are we going on that? What was the issue?
What is the change? What is the? I would say this is mostly a change in language and not a change in actual policy, like we aren't going to be changing how we deal with animals in the library. I think the main change is, yeah, just removing the bulk of the stenography of other policies that we're using to make ours. And including the references on this particular policy. I did say that rather than saying all other animals are prohibited from entry in such a firm way, I said that all animals are prohibited from entering the library without express and advance permission from the library director, because later on in the policy, it says that there are certain circumstances under which the library director might allow animals in the library, and I didn't want contradictory language. So the actual way that we're handling this issue is not changing. Mostly I wanted the policy to reflect how we're handling those issues. And the way that we're handling them is to follow ADA regulations as far as they go, and then have our own policies beyond that. Basically to give people with disabilities who are covered under the Americans with Disability Act all of the rights that they're allowed to have without going to our own kind of, I didn't go out on any limbs here, I just changed the language, to answer your questions.
So do other libraries, is this tailored like other libraries, or you don't know their policies?
It is very similar to how other libraries do this. In libraries where I've worked, this is very much in line with how those policies have been run in the past. And there hasn't been any important changes in this law in 15 years, I would say.
So this is not coming from any kind of complaints or one way or the other. You review the policy, try to trim it down,
Yep,
make some things clearer.
exactly. And we started with animals in the library because it's A, and that's the first one in the alphabet, to be honest. Jackie was very good about getting policies reviewed and approved. And so pretty much everything has been reviewed or approved in the last 5 years, except for these ones, so.
And it was, if I can interject, and say, Bill's done a great job of coming to work, and, you know, it's his library now. So he's, if you walk through the library, you'll see that he's done a tremendous job thinning and organizing and getting our library to a kind of an elevated level. He's doing the same thing with policy, just kind of streamlining and making sure that we don't have additional fluff in there that is destructive, and we can just go right through the statute and see if there's ever a question.
If you don't mind me saying one more thing about the animals in the library policy, I did take out references that were totally irrelevant to our so like our building and our properties, like establishments that sell or prepare food must do X, Y, Z. We don't sell or prepare food, so I just decided to leave that off of our policy. That's another category of change I made.
Any other questions for Dylan? Okay. Thank you. All right. Would we like to make a motion?
I move to approve the animals in the library policy for the bulletin board policy and the library advisory board ethics policy as presented.
I'll second.
I have, excuse me, a motion from Counselor Eater, seconded by Counselor Black. Can we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Sturba is absent. Counselor Bonnefield.
Aye.
Counselor Ott is absent. Counselor Balette.
Aye.
Counselor Eater.
Aye.
Counselor Hooper. Wow.
Aye. Next item 8C. Residential. An ordinance declaring a speed limit of 20 miles an hour on Oregon highways in the city of Mount Angel within residential districts.
That would be me.
Chief?
Thank you. So as the council is painfully aware, there have been, at least 2 times, since I've been employed as your city manager, where we've discussed, changing changing the speed limit in the entire community to 20 miles per hour. And, recently, on the front page of the Woodburn Independent was an article about the city of Woodburn going to the voters for that very same question. I did some research and was able to determine, which was not on the ODOT website, was not in all the ODOT information, but that House Bill 2095 of 2023 in the long session changed the law, and it'll basically allows cities to designate by ordinance a speed for a highway under the jurisdiction of that city that is 20 miles per hour when that roadway is located in a residential district and is not an arterial highway and signed properly. So basically all we need to do is pass an ordinance to change the speed limit in residential areas of the city to 20 miles per hour from 25. In order for it to be 20 miles per hour, we will need to post it as 20 miles per hour. So that it's posted as legally done in the state of Oregon. Now, I know the first question you're probably going to ask me is what are the arterials? What would not be counted in this ordinance? So West Markham and East Markham are arterials. Main Street, both South Main Street, North Main Street, local highway are not a part of that. Although ODOT within their jurisdiction, as we are all aware, made that 20 miles per hour. Church Street is not, College Street, Church and College, as it goes by the City Hall and up and out past the Abbey, is an arterial. West Church is also an arterial. The remainder of the streets within the city are residential streets, unless they're private streets. And in private streets, like in Bavarian Village, we can't determine that it's private property, it's premises open to the public, so they can establish whatever speed limit in there they choose. Same thing with Towers Lane. Towers Lane is a private street. So,
Okay.
but all the rest of them, as I gave our public works director actually a map highlighted, so you can determine how many signs we might have to buy moving forward. And after their inventory of how many 25 mile per hour signs we've got up in the community, I am recommending to council to pass this ordinance so that we can then post as many as we can afford 20 mile per hour speed signs in certain residential streets in the city of Mount Angel.
Is the goal to do all of those at the same time so that, you know what I'm saying, you're not driving one street's 25, the next one's 20?
It all depends on how much money we have in our street fund. And I'm not sure, and we're gonna have a little conversation here because I was asking Alan for this information for a while, but he was able to get the majority of it, I think, today. So
That's some sponsors.
there's a couple questions. One,
We sell those.
does it have enough remainder in the street fund for this year? And I don't have an answer to that.
I have ties and service.
Okay, so how much is it going to cost to do this?
So I estimated this on the high end and we're just under 10,000. That's with signs and posts and all the fasteners.
How about labor to put them in?
The labor's us.
The labor's you, but it's opportunity cost of
Right.
working over here versus working there.
I didn't figure that into it. It is gonna be a project. It's gonna take us some time.
They're not going on the same post?
Well, we only have 11 signs up currently. We're gonna have to put up a lot.
And there's no way to petition these other streets you mentioned. So it's everything
Sure.
20 miles an hour.
The way that you do that, though, is to go through that process, the same process that we talked about before. Then I submit a petition to ODOT, then we pay for the engineering to have engineers go out and make sure that it's okay, lower the speed limit on those streets. And then we go through the proper action that's outlined in the statute. So it's gonna be a lot more money, and we're gonna be paying a lot more to outside people to lower it from 25 to 20.
Do we know what authority the county has?
The county has authority on county roads. So
Those-
those would be the Marcos.
Okay.
How about South Main Street? That would remain unless we petitioned?
Correct. That would stay 25.
You're okay, Rick.
Huh?
You're okay.
In the event this wasn't done in its entirety, I assume we would do blocks, sections, potentially, from Markham to Church to Alder,
We're gonna have to
do a chunk.
yeah, we're gonna have to do, I think we need to come up with an implementation plan. If council passes this, and of course, the first reading is on. We'll have to visit this next month as well, because there's no emergency clause to this. But we can develop a implementation plan, which needs to also include education, obviously. So we're gonna need to get the message out. We're gonna probably need to do a variety of things to let people know that this was a council decision. This was made really to improve the safety of all of our residential communities, which is the number one, complaint that we receive is speeding
It is.
on residential streets.
You know, the hard part is I still catch myself on Main Street
Shh, don't say that.
because, huh?
Careful what you say.
Well, it is. It's easy because you're used to not even looking at the speed on me. I know I'm going 25 and I go, shoot, it's 20.
Yeah.
But all those holes in like Tiny's and all that, that reminds you to go 20.
They don't need to say.
I'm all for it.
I do have thoughts. That I like to express. Would love the idea to put it to the voters. I think that's great. It comes from them, not us. I'm generally for slowing down traffic. Don't have a problem with that. The cost to do this, and I just don't know if it's a problem citywide. Some of these side streets are so short anyway. Most people go slow because they know it's residential, they know their kids out, people walk everywhere, dogs are out with their owners. So the cost versus what the problem, right? What the problem is, kind of bothers me. Some councilors complained about some streets, and I wonder if this is just a shotgun approach to solving a problem. My statement is, why don't we just sign 20 miles an hour on Taylor or any other street of length that we think we have a problem? 3 weeks ago, you put out an email that says you watch for 5 hours on that street coming in Mount Angel. 3 violations and 2 of them were just a few ticks above 25. I don't think we have a big problem in the town for the money that it might cost us. I like the idea of going to the voters. If they want it, great. And then I can get behind that. Maybe the election costs more than what we're talking about. I don't know. But that's where I'm at.
Well, I don't see a need to put it to the voters. My time on council, that's the number one thing that people have complained about is speeding. We've invested in street signs, we've invested in trailers. I was walking last night, came past a speed trailer coming down Markham, East Markham. Saw 2 cars go by, one was 36 and one was 38. We watched it flash and flash and flash and didn't hear a come off the throttle. So if we spend 10 grand for material and whatever, if it's another, 15 for labor, if it keeps one kid from getting pushed off a scooter or something, I think that's a money saving thing. So I don't see a problem with it.
I think for me, I was one of those that I was like 20, 25, what's the difference? And then I started paying more attention to it. Thanks for the math, right? But I'll be the first one to tell everybody, I just tried to head it off at the pass and I posted something on the internet for everybody to read so that we would get rid of some of these questions and said, yes. Right now, you can turn off of a state highway and accelerate on side streets, and no, that doesn't make sense. It's not just Taylor, it's not just the Markhams, it's Alder Street, Hayes Street, Spruce Street. North Pershing's kind of like the highway. It's got enough bumps, it keeps you slow, but it is a lot of these. I like the idea of this gives us the opportunity to focus instead of just saying, hey, we're only going to do Taylor Street. This gives us the opportunity to focus where our educated and very smart individuals tell us to go and implement it appropriately. And I'm with Counselor Black. I hate the cost, but I don't want to make the cost worse by taking it to the voters, because that's even more lost.
This is just to create the ordinance, doesn't mean we have to do every street. But it gives us the ability to do that. Otherwise, statutorily, the speed limit is 25.
But I mean, doing every street makes it a lot simpler for, I mean, a lot simpler. Well, there's like Main Street is a state highway, and you got a couple arterials. That's everything else is every side street, everything 20 miles an hour. And if people get confused, like, oh, maybe it's 25 on this street too, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. If they don't see a sign that says 25, well, the last street was 20. I guess it's probably 20.
Yeah, start with replacing the signs, and then on the little streets that don't have signs, they can work under their assumptions for now. Until you get through these.
It's taken a long time for people to understand that, you know, town is growing to the west and there's speed signs. It's like, still, you know, I mean, I know I'm using my personal experience. My parents live down there going, you can hear people accelerating from the railroad tracks. And it's like, then we gotta hit the brakes and, you know, get around that corner on Mount River Highway. So people just, it takes a lot for them to change their behavior. So.
So I'm reading the map right, Alder is still in red.
Yeah, but it's not an arterial, true arterial.
They're thinking gray there. That, and that's fine. I mean, I said I'm kind of for it, except I think. Oh, there before, and I don't want to pick on any. You can make it 25, you can make it 20, you can make it 15. But they'll go as fast as they're allowed to go by our law enforcement. That, so, and I don't know what the stats are, how many speeding tickets are out there from here to there, or how many injuries, how many people have been hit. Just driving around myself, well, first of all, I don't really go on the side of the season, access to Taylor and Al, but I just think people can't really go more than 20, and I know people do, but by and large, people don't. That's my experience of walking around town. And anyway.
I think you need to do all or none, because it's gonna be too confusing if some are 20 and some are 25.
There were kids pulling wheelies on e-bike past my house over 20 yesterday.
Okay, well,
You can hear that coming too, right?
25, so those guys are crazy.
if you go up North Pershing or Spruce Street, you will quickly be reminded that many of the children in this community were not raised with the same guidance that we were, as far as getting your hind end off of the street when there is a car approaching. Doesn't matter how slow I go, I know there's two houses that I will always encounter children. I think it makes absolute sense, and the one thing that's floating around the back of my brain to your note about they will go as fast as law enforcement allows them to. I just can't help but remember how many citations were given for things that weren't speeding, just trying to educate the community. So I do think that there is additional opportunities given in the educational program.
Yeah.
When we did the highway.
The highway, I mean, I think that's a perfect example that I noticed is that I saw a lot of big cars stopped to start with. And I think that was kind of successful.
Yeah.
I don't know, you probably have a better idea whether they're really slowing down or not after all this time.
You know, I think they are. Honestly, I was talking with my number one traffic officer tonight, who got his radar back, actually got his laser back after breaking it and was headed out to do speed enforcement. But he and I talked about it tonight, and yeah, he and the sergeant are probably our number two guys for doing speed enforcement. I heard about it from Woodburn Ambulance recently, that they have noticed a lot of speed enforcement going on. And you know, it's interesting that 5 miles an hour, what it did was it narrowed our gap and it made it so that we could have a conversation with people a little earlier. And so they are stopping more cars. And when you look at it per capita across the board, I think they're writing the same amount of citations based on stops, right? So my advice to them has been, and I got this from a traffic engineer a long time ago, guy who teaches at the University of Portland, is a good rule of thumb for law enforcement is 60% warning to 40% citation.
Yes.
And
I love warnings too, because it's the same issue.
yeah,
People see somebody stop, whether they get a ticket or not, we don't know,
yeah.
but they see somebody stop.
So I think it will give us, because people are still gonna drive however fast they're gonna go. The other thing I'm gonna mention is the majority of the people who are speeding in the residential neighborhoods live there. Okay, so we will likely stop more people on Taylor. We will likely stop more people on all, we will likely stop more people on Sheridan. We're going too fast. And yeah, we all know, we've all been driving for a number of years. We all know how fast our cars go, how fast our trucks go. You can be up to 30, 35 miles an hour, are you? Not any problem. I can do it in way less than a block, or within 2 houses. We can all do it. So, for those opportunities, that's the ordinance, and it also is survivability. School zones are 20 miles an hour for survivability. If a child gets hit by a car at 20 miles an hour, they have better than 50% chance that they're going to survive that impact. For every mile an hour a car goes above the 20, it diminishes by 10%. So that's why schools are set at 20 miles an hour, is because of survivability. We are truly blessed here because we don't have children that have been hit by cars. We don't have the crash death. That's why I can't do any better on the Safe Routes to School grant or those types of things with ODA, because we just don't have the crashes that occur here. We've got a lot of crashes that occur in the parking lot of the deli. But we don't have crashes that are happening out on Main Street or on local highway. But riddle me this, if you go to Silverton, because of the increased amount of traffic, because of the increased speeds, they have crazy crashes all the time. We hear it all the time.
Yeah, I noticed it's 35 through Silverton when you first go in with all these businesses there.
Yeah.
Robart Road's terrible.
You started to touch on my next question, which is, I know that 2 of the main roads that have school zones, so this would really only kind of apply to like Taylor and Elm and a couple of those others. The enhance, so now it's 20 miles an hour all the time, but if you're caught in a school zone, it still comes with the elevated, because it's still, there's still the additional,
Yeah, but you know, there's some,
can't think of the word.
the word is escaping me, but there's some hygiene action that we still need to do with, you know, not because of Public Works, but with Public Works. What I mean is by adding some additional signage, right, to be able to enhance those penalties that need to be signed for. And there's no school zone in town that are signed with enhanced penalties. So there's some sign hygiene that does need to occur in town. But we've been working on this, I think, since I first came to work here, is making sure that our signs are legal, that they're posted in the right location, that things aren't blocking them. We've been working on all kinds of different things. But yes, so it's just like ODOT. You know, ODOT, when they dropped the speed to 20, they didn't do everything that they asked them to do. But and you know that they removed the school zone signs as you approach the markets, right? I convinced them that there's a school crossing sign, like there's 2 school crossing signs and both north and south are now illuminated, which they weren't illuminated before. My request to ODOT was that they leave the school zone sign and then they add the enhanced penalty sign to make sure that we could do that there. Their answer was to remove the school zone sign. I would suggest to council that we keep our school zone signs where our school zone signs are.
Yeah.
If for no other reason, but within those new 20-mile-per-hour speed zones, if that's the way council chooses to go, it still reminds people that there's a school, that it is a school zone, and then we will likely add enhanced penalty signs. So that we can add that hammer, if you will.
As a parent who still does morning drop off, I think there's at least a counselor and a mayor who's fully supportive of that. Okay.
I got 2 more comments. I just looked at if we could petition to do some of these other roads like Markham, look at all the activity that is up at the ball fields this time of the year. From here, basically all the way till beginning of June or longer.
I agree.
Beyond the 7 to 5, 20 miles an hour.
My thought was, prior to being able to petition them, we would need to show that we were doing this. And we would say, hey, this doesn't make sense anymore. Kind of like when ODOT changed their speed limit, we were able to say, hey, this doesn't make sense for us anymore. And then I would plan as mayor, if this passed, once this was implemented, to work with city manager to write a letter to Marion County and say, hey, this doesn't make sense anymore. And see what we can accomplish accordingly.
And one other comment, somebody mentioned maybe you didn't love the price. Well, in 5 years, they're probably gonna be 15,000. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna get any cheaper. The 10 grand to do this.
That's on the island, so
Yeah. And that probably off in 5 years being 15, but nothing's gonna get cheaper.
Right.
Yeah. Any other conversation related to this? Okay.
I move to conduct a first reading to approve an ordinance declaring a speed limit of 20 miles per hour on highways in the city of Mount Angel within residential districts.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Hofer, seconded by Counselor Eder, to conduct the first reading of ordinance number 785, an ordinance declaring a speed limit of 20 miles per hour on Oregon highways in the city of Mount Angel within residential districts. Can I have a roll call, please?
Counselor Hopper,
Aye.
Counselor Astor is absent, Counselor Donahue,
An emphatic aye.
Counselor Ott is absent, Counselor Bullock.
Aye.
Counselor Eder,
Aye.
Mayor Fowl.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right, item 8B, a fee schedule update.
It'd be Terra and Justice.
Okay,
We're not doing the second reading tonight, I take it even.
No, I did not include the emergency clause in that, so we'll do the second reading at the next one. And if you'll hand me that email back, then I can tell something to talk about there. And I'm sitting here.
There's just one major update to the fee schedule, and then while I was in there adjusting it, I had a staff member go through all of our ordinances. Basically our municipal code, municipal code, to look for anything else, anywhere ever that mentioned a fee. And I threw on what I could find, so. Whether we actually use them or not, I have this list of them. Any questions?
How much does it cost to get a bike out of impound? That might be pretty cheap storage.
We don't impound bicycles anymore.
$2, I mean. Guarantee safety?
Yeah, can I just check it in and check it out?
Sure. Pay finance.
Okay. I have one question, but I guess I'll wait a second. Any other questions?
No, not me.
So the occupied RV permit fix that like a sort of them, so what's the rule about RVs? And people living in them, or what does that even mean?
So I'll just
Go ahead.
finish, so, when you guys were having the ordinance discussions about parking and RVs in town, you adopted resolutions about occupied RVs. The ordinance allows them for 3 days. But if they want longer, they have to apply for it. So this is for longer than 3 days. They can only do it once per year. Unless there's special circumstances that they have to talk to the city manager about it.
Yeah, it has to be approved by the city manager.
How long can they go?
It's a max,
How long were you allowed?
I think it says a max of 15 days unless special circumstances.
Thanks for the info.
Where does this $150 on the vehicle tow and impound put us compared to what the city actually incurs?
I haven't done an apples to apples comparison. But it doesn't account for all the staff time on a tow. Because you've got an impound, you've got officers that are doing the impound, you have to go through a special, speak English. They have to go through a special process every time they impound a vehicle by law. They have to actually inventory the vehicle from stem to stern to verify there's no valuables, then secure those valuables if they're located. Then we also have to check the condition of the vehicle. All that has to be noted on the tow form. All this takes time. We then call a approved tow firm by contract. There is standby time. We cannot, once we are going to impound a vehicle, we cannot just let it sit and leave because it's under our custody. If we missed something or somebody made a claim to that and somebody else got into the vehicle, stole something, it'd be the responsibility of the city. So we're in it for all the time it takes for us to actually tow the vehicle. And then, once they satisfy the requirements that we have on them to retrieve the vehicle, they need to come to the police department. And then they have to present certain documents. So there is our administrative assistant's salary and time, if you will, of processing those documents, making copies, doing all the things that have got to be done. In addition to calling the tow company and giving them a oral release so that the person can then go. We then prepare paperwork so that the person receiving the vehicle can actually go there with the paperwork and retrieve the vehicle.
But the actual cost of the tow and storage is still upon the owner of the vehicle.
That is correct. That's completely
That was, okay.
from what we have and is significantly more than this.
Okay, that was my question is this isn't 150. This is 150 to do the process to be able to go pay to get your car out.
That's correct.
Okay, that was what I was tracking because I've never had a car impounded, but I had one I used to own impounded and got a phone call for far more than $150.
If you will, this is the bail you pay to get your car out of jail.
Okay, and then you go settle up with the tow company for the tow and the storage.
That is correct. We
Okay,
do not charge people for releases on like recovered stolens and things like that. Because they've already been victimized enough,
mhm,
but that will require a release to take to the tow company before they can receive their vehicle back.
okay. That was my only question. Any others? Okay. Hearing none. I would entertain a motion on resolution 1620, a resolution adopting a master fee schedule for services provided by the city of Mount Angel.
So
I have a motion by Counselor Beck, seconded by Counselor Hofer. Roll call, please.
Counselor Eater,
Aye.
Greg Olson,
Aye.
Margaret absent, Counselor Donovan.
Aye.
Counselor Ott is absent, Counselor Beck.
Aye.
Mayor Fowl.
Aye. Next on our list, item 9, city manager's report.
Thank you. The only thing that I have for council tonight, in addition to everything that you've done so far, and I'm quite appreciative for that. Is an update. Last council meeting, I was asked by Councilor Eater, where is the Jim Kozel cat case? And so I asked the investigating officer, because I didn't know at our last council meeting. And he was good enough to send me an email. So this is dated on March 13th. In fact, on that day, he responded and talked with the homeowner where this cat issue has been originating. He spoke with her about the complaint. He let her know that, he observed that her yard was very well maintained. He thanked her for keeping it that way. Told her that she was not in trouble at this time and that he was there to give preemptive advice about her setting up with feeding cats in the back covered porch area and how it attracts wild animals. Because behind her house, she actually has kind of a cat house built back there. So it is all screened and there are boards and it just kind of encloses the rear patio of her home. She informed the officer that she keeps 3 cats in her home and claims 3 of the outside cats as her pets. She informed the officer that since the last issue, which was back in 2019, involving skunks and a variety of other rodents and things like that, that she was feeding in her garage, that she has 2 large planters with soft dirt for the cats to use as a litter box. And they appear to like that. She informed the officer that she has a yard crew that tends to those and changes out the dirt when they're soiled. She informed the officer that the crew also cleans up and maintains her yard and the waste. During the conversation, the officer provided her with a copy of the city ordinance and informed her specifically about 9705, mainly sections 7 and 8, which talk about creating conditions which attract rodents. He told her at the same time that her yard appears well kept by her yard crew, but the only thing she did is to bring the extra dry cat food inside or seal it when her cats are done eating, and for her to close the back door because there is a door actually on that enclosure to prevent raccoons or skunks from accessing the back area, as they've been reported to have done in the past. She said that she understood and she would do that. The officer thanked her for her understanding and let her know that if she were to cause these conditions in the future, she could be fined for the violation of city ordinance, as she has in the last time, which carried a $500 fine. She said she understood and would not do that. Later, the complainant, who didn't want the officer actually showing up at his house, was phoned and thanked the officer for looking into the issue. He was told that if he sees any reoccurrence, that he is to contact Sergeant Lopez immediately, and he will continue with his investigation and proceed as promised.
Excellent.
That's all.
Questions? Okay. Youth Advisory Council report.
Hello. For April, we have Dornbeckers Week coming up. Where we fundraise for OHSU Dornbecker Children's Hospital, April 13th to the 17th this year. So these events are community open. So we have a talent show, April 21st at 6:30. It's pay to enter, but the price is to be determined. So like the best Trojan ever for 2026 will be crowned, and there will be some raffling of business donated baskets. And then we have a kickball tournament. All are welcome on the 13th, either at 6:30 or 7, depending on at what time softball ends. And then admission is free, but make sure to bring your wallets to Sabotage. So it's just kind of, because the actual tournament is for students only. But all spectators are allowed to buy Sabotages, so for like other teams and specific students and stuff like that. And then we're gonna be selling barbecue and Italian sodas at home track meet Thursday the 16th, while supplies last. All are welcome to come and support track athletes. And then there's an event to be determined on Friday the 17th, but it's a possible like roller skating night kind of at the high school. Pizza, soda, fun stuff like that. But it's not for sure yet. And then prom is April 25th. We have some improved concession stands for spring sports. And the JFK Booster Club are the ones actually running that, but they're in need of volunteers, so that would be great. Any afternoons where you guys are free and stuff like that. And we're currently map testing, and state testing is also coming this month for upperclassmen.
Where's the problem?
They're Valley Farm. I can't remember where exactly. I'm sorry. It's open to juniors and seniors only, so that's why it's not at the back of my mind. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Vanderbeck.
Darn it.
Vanderbeck Farms,
Where?
Vanderbeck.
Oh, Vanderbeck.
Thank you.
So how do you raise funds for the Dornbecker?
So like the Sabotages, like buying Sabotages at the kickball tournament. So they're at like different prices so it's like, oh, kick with your non-dominant leg. So you just pay like, I don't know, $1 or $2 for that. And then all the money we raise goes to Dornbeckers and, so like the Italian sodas and stuff like that, and, the talent show as well.
Busy.
Yeah, busy month. Thank you. Council reports. Counselor Donahue. Counselor Eder.
One question in your weekly report, how would a person get an e-citation?
An e-citation is simply something that we generate on the computer rather than out of my site book. So the cool thing about the e-citation program is that the officers will be writing their citations on their computer using our CAD system. And when the officer is done writing the citation, then you press print and a very long, I call them Costco receipts. And my wife has received 2 of them recently. So there are traffic citation with the same information, just on a 4-inch piece of paper about this long. And it's legible so that everybody can read it. And so what happens is when you press print and you press send, the information then goes right into our system for our dispatch, but then also our report writing. And then it's also linked to our finance department so that that information goes directly to municipal court. without having to be entered by our administrative assistant in the police department or touched and entered by the municipal clerk. It won't completely eliminate all paper written citations, but darn near. So that's what e-ticket is.
And
It's
then
taking
what,
us into the 21st century.
then one other question I've asked it before, so I see 3 cars out here that are, I think they're there all the time, so there's officers that aren't allowed to take those home yet, or you're that understaffed.
We're still down to 2 people, so 2 of those cars belong there. Roy had his knee replaced, so he's back to duty, so he's taking his car home. And then we have only 2 spares. We have one that we generally keep up at the Abbey and the White Tom. The other 2 cars are going to be issued when we have the people to issue them to.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Hoover,
I'm good.
Counselor Black.
His line of questioning, how about the drone? How does the drones work? Or how are they used in your emergency situations that you?
Yeah, they'll be able to be used in a lot of different situations. They'll be able to be put up in the air. If somebody is running from the police. They'll be able to be used in search and rescue operations. And here in Mount Angel, search and rescue looking for elderly people or children is a big deal. And so being able to put those drones up in the air to look for those elderly folks and little people is a really big deal. But it'll give us the opportunity to find bad guys if they are running from us. There's no way that I could even justify with a smirk, smile, or anything else, a police dog team here. We'd be off using them with the neighbors all the time. They'd never be here. They'd never be on duty here. But with the drone, it's something that we'll just keep charging, we'll keep it in our vehicle, and we'll be able to deploy it if we need.
Is there a way to distinguish your drone versus others?
No, and that's the nice, that's kind of the nice thing. Because our drones will be commercially available just like they are to the regular public. Not spending $1 zillion on them like some of the farms that are, spending $25,000 or $15,000 on a drone. So they can spray and do that type of thing. We don't want to create new case law. We don't want to create bad case law. So basically, we want to be able to fly our drones where everybody else can fly their drones. Which is basically anywhere in G-related airspace, which is general airspace, which is where we are. And no higher than 400 feet. But keeping into consideration, we want to make sure that we are making sure that we're not violating people's privacy and that type of thing as well.
Yeah, that's the question on that. So where can people fly drones?
They can fly drones, they can fly drones. There's no regulated airspace over Mount Angel.
So couple of instances or more over the years, they're in our backyard.
Yeah.
They can do that.
They really shouldn't be in your backyard.
They're in our backyard. She wants to shoot them out of the sky.
Well, if they're flying up above in the airspace, they can do
They
that.
can do that. Okay.
You do live next to one of the best landing zones.
They're not handy. They're operating. Do what they do.
Give us a call. We can certainly go out and have a conversation with them.
But you know where they are. You know where they are.
Well, it's not that hard to find them. Number one, certainly people are not following the law. They're supposed to keep them under, and I just got my federal pilot's license. So you are supposed to keep them under surveillance with your own eye. Certainly people aren't doing that. And for us, if I can't see it, it can't go anywhere, or if I don't have an observer, it can't. It's supposed to be under constant observation. But like you said, we've got people that fly them from their house and they're just watching their little screen. And they're flying around going all over. Oktoberfest asked me a question. And I didn't know that this had happened. But they'd asked me a question about people flying drones through the venues. I didn't know that was happening. And I actually asked the question, and I learned a lot by going to pilot school. I asked the question about, so what do we do? And I really hadn't thought about this. You know, Oregon has a statute, a criminal statute called recklessly endangering, which is acting in a manner or doing whatever activity that you're involved in a manner that's going to cause or is likely to cause injury or damage to property. It's kind of like reckless driving. And so when you're flying a drone around inside of a venue where there's a lot of people, which by the way, if it was outside, you're not allowed to do either. Even with a commercial license. You're not supposed to be flying over large groups of people. You're only supposed to be flying over areas that don't have people right underneath you. But the instructors who were officers and veteran drone pilots out of Washington State said, hey, listen, that's recklessly endangering. They're endangering everybody in that venue by flying that drone, especially the smaller drones, and they're flying really fast. Yeah, it could all of a sudden come and do a flyaway, lose contact with the person with the remote, and crash into people, put somebody's eye out, create significant lacerations. There's a variety of different things that can happen. But flying through that venue is really easy to prove for recklessly endangering, especially with all the people that are there. So as I told Oktoberfest, I said, well, let's get through this. And if that happens again, I want you to call us, because then we can do what we can to try and find the drone pilot. And likely they're going to be pretty local. They're going to be right around there somewhere. So it's something new, something different. And the other good thing is we'll be able to use them for a variety of different things, not just law enforcement. We'll be able to use them for public works. We'll be able to use them for a variety of different things. So the city of Renton, which is where my instructor is a police officer full-time, the city of Renton decided that all drone use within the city would be done through the police department, rather than public works or streets having their own drones and flying those missions. They just work with the police department to form the needs of the city. And that's what I intend on doing here too. Thank you. You're welcome. Great question.
All right, I think I got everybody. I don't have much for my report. I will just say, because I always shoot for 100%, probably as transparent as humanly possible. It is primary season, and we do have folks who are running for state positions we are within their district, and it is kind of a crowded house right now. I think there's about 6 or 7, depending upon the day. And some of those folks have reached out to me directly, and I have provided each and every one the exact same thing, which is, if you would like to come to Mount Angel, I would gladly share our community, and I would gladly share our needs. And if you win, I expect you to remember Mount Angel vividly and those needs that I shared with you. And so there's been 3 that have reached out, and there may be opportunities here locally to meet with them and have similar conversations if you so choose. So anybody who sees me standing in front of the Glockenspiel with a candidate for a state position, just know that that opportunity has been gifted to any and all people willing to look me up on the internet and call me. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting.